Up next on Inside the SCCA, talking with a solo nationals legend. Welcome to episode 239, maybe, of Inside the SCCA. I'm Brian Bielanski. Good morning, everybody. Well, good morning on the recording side of this. Depends on when you're watching, maybe afternoon or evening. Great show ahead today, doing our solo nationals preview shows as we all get ready for the big week in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's like the 175th time in Lincoln. No, just kidding. But been to Lincoln a lot of times, and it's a airport tarmac solo nationals like it's been for many, many years. Joining me now is Sam Strano. Sam, coming to me from Pennsylvania, right?
Yep.
I understand it's beautiful weather in Pennsylvania this morning.
It's a little thunderstormy, but we need the rain.
I miss thunderstorms. Out here in California, we don't get them very often. And when we do, it's like, what's that? Is that thunder I hear? Because it's so rare to have that. So, and I know all about what it means to need a little bit of rain. We have that situation out here most of the time as well. So, welcome to the show. And we start every show the same way. Whenever we have a first-time guest on the show, we start with the exact same question for everybody, and that is, how did you get mixed up in this crazy sport that we love?
Should have done my homework, I guess. How did I get mixed up in it? Believe it or not, a public access TV ad.
Really?
When I was in college. Yep. Like, the old Channel 3 thing that just scrolled messages? Yeah. There was an ad on there for the local region that is still very small, and that was 1994. That's how this mess started for me.
What region was that, or is that?
Central Pennsylvania region.
Well, props to Central Pennsylvania region. I have discussions all the time about how do we get new members, how do we grow the show, the club, all of our workers are getting old and quitting, or sadly even sometimes dying, and we need new blood, and everyone's trying to figure out how to do that. But to actually go and take the effort to put an ad on local access cable, that's fantastic. Great idea.
Yep.
Cool. And it obviously worked because it got you in the whole thing, right?
I mean, I think it worked. Some other people might think it backfired on them, but it seems to have stuck.
What was the ad about? I mean, was it just like road racing solo? What was the ad?
Autocross, something like, do you want to, I don't know if they use the word race because of course we're not racing.
Right.
$20 and a driver's license. Show up here.
What were you driving at the time?
I don't know that anybody would ever remember seeing this thing around. It was a 1983 280ZX.
Okay.
With an automatic and a crushed quarter panel. I bought it with a crushed quarter panel. I didn't add that little feature myself, but they had this funky, semi-trailing arm rear suspension that cambered jacked when you got off the gas, which actually taught me a lot about trailing throttle oversteer and stuff like that. So even though the car was not fast, it was something I learned a lot in.
So in 94, you were driving an 83 280Z. I'm guessing you bought it used because it had already a crushed quarter panel. Were you a car guy?
Yeah. We, my dad, when they reopened Watkins Glen, the first thing we did was go up to the IMSA race there, and always loved road racing and things like that.
Okay.
And we had a garage. We've always had a garage since I was 2 years old.
Okay. So it started before that ad. The ad was just how it got you into solo.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I'd never done any other kind of racing or anything else with cars. So just messing around on the back roads and, slaloming deer, which we still do.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes they end up getting hit, sadly, but they do way more damage in a cone, I can tell you that.
I've hit a deer myself. I grew up in Wisconsin, so And I went to school in Minnesota, and going through the bluffs between Winona and Rochester, I hit my first and thankfully my last deer, and I had almost stopped. So this one did almost no damage, but the deer kind of got knocked down, looked up at me, shook its head, and then scattered away. So I barely tapped it, but I did hit it. So so Dad had a shop, took you to Watkins Glen. Was there any motorsports, like actual hands-on, before that anywhere in the family?
Nope.
Okay, so you get to that first event, hooked immediately, or was it like
No.
no?
No. It's a very small event, and people are very friendly, but I was terrible. I mean, it's a small course. It looped over itself. Finding where you went was difficult, which I think is probably how I ended up designing courses and things like that. And I was atrocious, like so bad at 20 years old. I was like, I'm not going. It's embarrassing. I'm not going back again. And it took about 2 weeks, and my parents actually making fun of me, going, you gonna quit? You weren't any good. Like I used to bowl.
Yeah.
And I got pretty good at that, but I was not good when I started. So they made fun of me for it. And I was like, they're right. Plus, I'm not going to get a ticket at least doing that. So maybe I should go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, really bad. I like 10, I don't know, 10, 12 seconds slower than the next slowest car there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was it because the car was not good in the class, or was it all you?
I mean, obviously the car wasn't good in the class, but it was me. I just
Okay.
had no idea where I was going. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I went back to autocrossing after several years, a couple years ago, before I went to my first solo nationals, and I figured I should do a couple before I go. And I went to cover it for the show. So my intention wasn't to race at solo nationals. It was just or drive, I should say, because you're right, we don't race. My intention wasn't to drive, but Hayward Wagner looked at me or called me and said, what are you driving at solo nationals? I said, well, I'm not, because I'm there to do the show. And he goes, you can't go to solo nationals without driving. And I'm like, but I haven't done an autocross since 1992. And he goes, so what does that have to do with anything? I'm like, well, don't the people at solo nationals have to be good? And he goes, no, they have to want to have fun. And I'm like, okay, well, I like having fun. So we went to solo nationals, and I had a Honda Fit. Now, do you know anything about the Honda Fit, Sam?
Yep.
It is the slowest car in the slowest class, and I proved that twice now, and by finishing last 2 years in a row in H Street. So, and that is somewhat me and somewhat the car. It is
Well,
yeah.
H Street is not what it was like when I started.
Sure.
I look at it now and kind of scratch my head, and I don't find it funny, I guess. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. Time marches on, right? But now when you look at H Street and you go, oh, that's 160 or 200 horsepower, the cars just get better.
Well, yeah.
So I'm not surprised.
And I think H Street is the problem with H Street is that it's where everything goes that is too slow for anything else. But there's a handful of cars that are just wicked fast because they're too slow for G Street, but not fast enough, but it's just way faster than a Honda Fit or a handful of other cars that never show up because they just don't work at H Street. But that's the car I owned, and that's the car I brought. So and I had a blast. I've never had more fun finishing last in anything in my entire life. So
that's good.
Yeah, it was a good time. This year, the Honda Fit was wrecked in a street wreck this year, so I'm still unclear whether I'm going to get to go to Solo Nationals this year, but I'm still working on it. We're 2 weeks away. I think I'm going to be there, and I have a ride if I go. So
I was going to say, certain rental car companies, you can get 5-liter Mustangs and things. And
you have
they
no idea.
End up in F Street, though, so I don't know if you'd want to do that.
Well, I couldn't be any less competitive in a rental car in F Street than I would have been in a Honda Fit in H Street. So that would be fun. No, I actually have a really cool car that I've been offered a chance to drive. So if I get there, I'll still be really bad, but I'll be bad at a really good car. So it'll be fun nonetheless. So
well, hope you can make it.
Yeah, well, that's the goal. That's the goal. So you did the first couple events. You weren't very good. When did you start to say, okay, I can be good at this?
Maybe toward the end of the first year, there were little bits and pieces of things that started to come together, but it's still, I understood where I was going
Right.
and I could drive the car, at which point I realized I could kind of tell what the car was up to. And then it
Right.
rained. There was some event somewhere it had rained. And all of a sudden I went like, I think I was second overall or something. And uh, I was still in that same car. It was terrible. And I did what most people did and didn't really understand or read the rule book. So I was now 21 and threw a bunch of parts on it. So now I ended up with this same 280ZX, but now in C Street repaired.
Okay.
And this area or east of here was where all the fastest C Street repair cars were.
Got it.
Including the current national champion, a bunch of Civics, and things on Hoosier Autocrossers and stuff like that. And it dumped right into this event, and I was leading for the longest time, and then at the very end of Sports 2000 on full wets, like just barely pipped me, and I went, "Oh, hey, that was probably the best event I'll ever have in my life." And in the dry, I still sucked because I just couldn't drive the car to the limit.
Right.
And somebody, Tim Morrow, who's also a longtime autocrosser and national champion, we started at the same little tiny, like 29-person event, but he had background in motocross and stuff like that. And he was way better at it than I was, but we ended up, turns out we lived like 300 yards apart in
Oh,
State
wow.
College. And so we spent a inordinate amount of time discussing this stuff. And should we go to a school and just talking about driving theories and stuff like that? And so probably a big reason I'm anywhere is, because of those conversations.
Very cool. Very cool. It's amazing. Well, and this is, you said 93, 94, right? 92, 93, 94, somewhere in there?
And I started May 1st, 1994, the day Ayrton Senna thing happened in Imola.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I
Mhm.
didn't remember the date, but yep, that absolutely lines up.
Yep.
Interesting. So I have a lot of what I call kids on the show, and the tools that are out there today that you and I didn't have. There was no YouTube to go watch 100 videos of people doing this. There were no YouTube tutorials with people who may or may not be good and may or may not be good at answering the questions or talking about things. Was there a book out on autocross at that point in time? I don't even remember. I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't remember who wrote it. There was a book.
Okay.
There was a videotape. I can't remember. I mean, I'm embarrassed. I can't remember the name. Dick Turner.
Okay.
So there was a videotape with some people I ended up knowing, showing how to do it. North American Pylon, newspaper was a thing,
Yep.
but that was just reporting, basically. So that was it. And then I think team.net or something had started around that time,
Right. But we had dial up, so if you could even get to something like that.
Oh, there was no video or anything. It was just,
Yeah.
bench racing then. Yeah.
Yeah. So the tools and even sim racing, it doesn't
Mhm.
really apply to autocross, but it does get you behind the wheel and trying to learn how to drive a car to the limit but the kids these days have all of these different tools. We didn't even have video in our own cars because the cameras were so big, there was no good way to mount them. And so the way we had to learn was exactly what you did. You sat around and basically bench raced and found someone to kind of mentor you, or at least even if the person didn't have a lot of experience, just that they were better than you, right?
Yep. Lots of fun runs too, which aren't a thing anymore, but I guess with Sims and everything that's helped them out. But people ask me all the time, they're like, I just don't get to drive very often and don't get much time. But I mean, we used to have, dollar runs, fun runs. We would, if I had an event somewhere Saturday, I'd, book it somewhere else for Sunday. Not that I still don't do that once in a while, but it's a lot more rare,
Yeah.
these days. So see, I mean, you got to be in the car and to me, you have to feel what's going on. So the sim racing helps, knowing what to do, when to turn the car.
Right.
You can hit reset, all that stuff. But I have to be able to feel what's going on. Like I sit very upright. Everybody's usually surprised how close generally I sit to the wheel. If I'm not pretty vertical, I can't feel what's going on in the car, or my
Right.
inputs are like way behind.
Yeah.
So yeah, while I'll sim race once in a while, no substitute for being in the car for me.
No, no, and for those of us who started without sims, learning is that this is another thing I'm working on is trying to be really good at sim racing, and it's really hard if you haven't started there before getting to a car to race, because you don't have all of those tactile feelings that you get in a car, and it's an interesting way to learn how to do this, and it's kind of
Hmm.
interesting. We still do fun runs out here. Is it because you've got so many people at your autocrosses you just don't have time to do them?
No, I mean, a lot of regions here are still very small and don't, but I think they're too small in a way, right? There's just
Right.
not enough bodies. And, there's, I don't know, it's gotten worse where people just take off. Sometimes they don't even
Okay.
do their work assignment, let alone hanging around and wanting to work a little extra, shag a few extra cones.
Hmm.
Um, I guess that's probably why, but
Yeah.
not certain.
I guess we're lucky out here with Cal Club, and yeah, they do their runs, and then they have what they call X runs at the end, and you pay. I think you pay for them too, and it's more than
Hmm.
$1. So I think if you've invested a little bit of money into it, people actually want to show up and do it. So that might have something to do with it as well. How long did you stick with the 280Z?
Oh, I guess it was probably the first year and a half or so. And
Okay.
then, keep in mind, I'm 21 now, and
Right.
I'm 51 now, but I was 21 then. And I went by a car a lot, and lo and behold, there was a 280ZX turbo. And I was like, oh, that was the fastest accelerating car in 1982,
Yeah.
that there was. And I knew all my parts would fit it because, well, it's the same car. So I ended up buying that thing. Sadly,
Okay.
it was also still an automatic. Um, Terribly slow, 0 to 30, pretty quick from 30 to 60. And then that's when things really started kind of clicking. Of course, I ended up in A Street Repair then. So I had, Lotus Salons and
Yeah.
one particular 1970, I don't know, 70 or 72 911 with a later 3.2 Carrera
Mm.
engine. And he's unfortunately, we became friends, and unfortunately, he's passed away. But he was one of those fun, grumpy guys, more grumpy, but he actually was a nice guy. And there was just one event one day where he very grudgingly said to me something like, "If you ever had a real car, you might actually scare somebody." And at first I was offended, and then I realized he meant it as a compliment. And
Sure.
then years later, I told him that he said that to me. He's like, "No, I didn't. There's no way I would have said that to you." He did. So thank you, Dave Newman.
Was that motivation?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Did you ever beat him
Hmm.
in that 280Z?
Don't think so. Got close
Okay.
though.
Okay. And then what did you graduate from after the 280Z Turbo?
A 91 1LE Camaro
Okay.
that was all set up. Had three sets of wheels and
Oh,
tires, and
wow.
had won pro solos, and it never won nationals, but it was close, and it was set up. Basically, it was a clone to the 1LE that Mark Daddio had, and
Right.
they were good friends. So that car popped up for sale. I think it was $9,500
Okay.
in 90 end of 96. So it took a few years in the Datsuns, and then I went to go buy it, but we're a small business, and I don't get a regular paycheck. We take draw,
Right.
and was 23, I guess, by now. And I couldn't buy the car. I was in New York. I couldn't get a loan without the title. I couldn't get the title without a loan. But, I think, I don't know if it's still a thing, but when I was in college, they gave these cash advance checks. They would send
Okay.
them to you from your credit card. Then it was 0% for 6 months. And I was not bad with money. I didn't just throw it away like crazy.
Right.
So I literally went to my bank, wrote myself a cash advance check, put it in the bank, took a cashier's check out, and went and bought my first real
Wow.
autocross car.
Wow. Did you get it paid off in 6 months?
Yeah, I did actually.
Very cool. Very cool. So for me, things like autocross and a lot of it's a mental game.
Hmm.
And going to a car that you know is going to be competitive if you're a good enough driver, that's a leap of faith in yourself, isn't it?
I remember my mom asked me, she's like, "What if you're not as good as you think you are
Yeah.
or have gotten?" And I didn't have an answer at first, and I thought about it. I'm like, well, I don't know. I guess I have a nice car
Yeah. Yeah.
then, and that was really the answer. And it was a great car. I loved it, except for the lack of air conditioning. That sucked. But
Yeah.
I wish I still had it. I really liked that car.
Were you driving it back and forth at that point?
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
little tire trailer, or third wheels and tires in it.
Sure.
The whole kettle of fish.
Yeah, so when you're driving a Honda Fit in H Street, the expectation is that you're going to finish last or nearly last. Now that I have an opportunity to drive what will be a good car, and with someone who's driven it a lot, I will have a measuring stick, and I'm
Hmm.
like, do I want this measuring stick? Do I want to know how incompetent or competent I may or may not be? But I think that's fun. I will still have the excuse that I've never driven the car before Solo National. So there's my toolbox. The top drawer says victory speeches. The bottom drawer says excuses. And I never open the top drawer, so I got plenty of excuses if I don't drive fast enough. But it's cool. So when was your first trip to Solo Nationals?
1995.
Okay, okay, and that was with which car?
It was with Tim's 86 MR2.
Oh,
It was
wow,
Z stock.
86. So
And
interestingly enough, the car that I may drive at Solo Nationals this year is a 93 or 94 MR2.
oh, much better.
Yeah, yeah. So
The 86 was the worst thing it could have possibly gone because they had no rear sway bar that year,
okay,
and you had to force it to turn, which I had not figured out how to make that rotation happen at that point. And it was the year that was well known for BF Goodrich tires developing this thing called the evil groove of doom. And no joke, 6 runs they'd be corded in the bottom part of the first groove because of the way the tire cantilevered. People laugh about tire costs now, and I'm like, yeah, try going through tires in 6 runs, see what happens.
wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, before I came back to doing autocrossing, the car I had autocrossed the most was an 86 Fiero, which I always called the American version of the MR2. And
Hmm.
and it was a 4-cylinder, so it was underpowered. I think that may have also been in H stock at the time, and had a blast with it. Again, not very good, but it was fun. And
Hmm.
never put good tires on it, so I wouldn't know about 6-run tires. I just ran the BFG street tires that I was running at the time, had at the time. But
Right.
yeah, it's everyone has an interesting journey. How'd that first Solo Nationals go?
Terrible. 51st, I think, out of
Oh,
what's the joke? 60 people entered, 3 didn't show up. So it was actually like 51st out of 57. And of course, Tim and I were out driving out there like, well, maybe if you do really well, that he could trophy, or there might have even been some comment about, well, you could too, but that was more him, I think, propping me up.
right.
And yeah, it didn't go well. I think he was 28th or something like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, went just as bad as you thought. And I literally was 10 seconds back of the winner that year. At least it was not in one day. It was over both days, but yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't good.
Yeah. So, you have when did you finally get your first Nationals trophy?
Solo Nationals?
Yeah.
Oh, the next one I went back to in 97. I was
Cool.
7th.
Cool.
Mhm.
So what happened between those 2 years? Different car?
Well, I changed to a real car,
Got it.
because I didn't have the Camaro in 95.
Got it. Okay.
I bought it at the end of 96, and turns out I did have some idea what I was doing. And then I figured out the other little things that details that made me really slow in his MR2. I had learned. They weren't really, applicable to the Camaro, but
Right.
yeah. So I was 7th then, and I think the next year I was 3rd, and then I just kind of bounced around there for a year or two and
So,
managed to win. I think in '02. '02 was the first year I won.
yeah. How many national titles do you have?
Solo Nationals,
Yeah.
10.
10. Very cool.
Mhm.
I just want a trophy someday. So did you ever go back to mom and say, "Hey mom, I guess I wasn't so bad after all, huh?"
Oh no, no, she was super supportive
Oh,
of
cool.
everything we did. So
Very
she
cool.
knew they would come to events and take the little lawn chairs and set them out and everything and do the cheerleading thing.
So maybe mom knew you were better than you thought you were, and was just using reverse psychology as moms sometimes do.
I don't think it's because she knew I was better, but I'm sure it was the reverse psychology. Like, don't be a quitter.
Yeah.
Got to
Very
think.
cool. Very cool. So when did you get into designing courses? Because that's fascinating to me. And you are, as I'm told by the people in the room, pretty darn good at it. So when did you, first of all, when did you think you wanted to try to do it? Because I'm guessing your first course wasn't a great course. And then the evolution of getting to the point where, because you've done several solo nationals courses, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How did
The
that all
pro
start?
finale.
Yeah, how did that all
Yeah.
start?
Because of the local region I was telling you about, we raced on this lot that looked like the letter P, and just the way it was, you always had to cross over and do things like that. And like I said, I had gotten lost, and a lot of new people every time they would show up would have the same struggle. And I just one day got to an event and saw something that looked horrible, I thought, and I said, man, I could just clean that up, move a few cones around, and stuff like that. And the guy who did the course was like, fine, you think you can do a better job? Do it. I'm like, okay. So I did it. And I kind of started learning what worked and what didn't work, and, realized I had to see it first. I guess that, even before, I got involved with McCamey schools, or, what are now evolution schools. If you can't see what you're driving toward or through or on, it's kind of hard to actually do it.
Right.
So
Very
that's how
cool.
that whole thing started.
And did you become the de facto course designer for your region?
Yep. It's like one of those, if you do a job and you do it decently, it ends up landing in your lap, even if you didn't intend it to be that way. And then, of course, I ended up being assistant solo chair, like, because I didn't make a meeting. It was one of those things where I got voted in because I wasn't there to say, hell no, I'm not doing that. So
It's my rule of volunteering. If you mention that something might be a good idea, you have now volunteered to make it happen. So,
right. Essentially, I ended up getting voluntold that I was going to be the
voluntold.
solo chair.
Yes. All right. I'm going to take a half a second break here and thank the people who helped me do the show. So stay with me. We got a bunch to talk about on the other side. So, of course, Inside the SCCA doesn't happen without some great partners. One of them is Porterfield Brakes. Porterfield Brakes is a great place to go and find brakes for your autocross car as well as your road race car. Check them out. Their link is in the show notes. Babyface Fabrication is our tech tip. Oh, Sam doesn't know it, but I'm going to ask him for a tech tip here in a few minutes. Because he is a techie guy, and we especially with a brand new class in solo. So we'll talk about that in a second. Babyface Fabrication out of North Carolina. They're absolutely fantastic roll cage builders and any kind of fabrication that you need. Background in NASCAR. Josh is just a really, really talented guy, so check him out as well. Ray Esports is the official sim racing league of Inside the SCCA. Actually raced the Formula V Weekend Warriors yesterday with them. Stunk up the joint, of course, but had a great time and didn't run anybody else over, so that's a win. And had a good time with them. But they have stuff on the weekends. They do a Formula V on Saturdays. They do Spec Racer Ford and Formula Ford on Sundays. And they also have a Thursday night league with the Mazda MX-5 or Global MX-5 Cup or whatever they call it on iRacing. Solo Performance Specialties, Dave and his band of merry men and women who show up at most of the Solo Nationals and, of course, Solo Nats as well, Solo Tour, I should say, and the Solo Nats as well. Great folks, always helpful. If you can't get to them at an autocross, you could go to their website and order stuff from them, and I just love working with them. I order on one day, and 2 or 3 days later, it shows up at my door exactly what I asked for. David R. Penterick and Associates, William R. Penterick and Associates, Dave Penterick, SCCAer. He is a GT1 driver, Trans Am driver. He's also really good with money. And if you want to figure out what to do with your retirement, or if you have some money you want to save away or invest, he is smart and he's just a really good guy. So check him out as well. Is that everybody? I think that's everybody. Yep. Got through everybody. Those are the folks that helped me do this show and helped me go to all of the events that we go to, and we could not do it without them. Back now with Sam Strano. Sam, let's do this real quick. I threw it out there. You were listening. We do a tech tip now, and it's always something a little, sometimes a little nugget, sometimes a bigger nugget. Let me ask you this question: if you were a brand new autocrosser and just starting out, a lot of what we do on the show is talking about the newbies. What would be your one tech tip to give someone who might be one to an event or two, realize they're enjoying this, and kind of want to take their stuff to the next level? What would be the first thing you might do to your car if you were a new autocrosser?
Align it and put tires on it. There's
Oh,
maybe two tech tips together.
okay. What would you change alignment-wise from what would be considered stock on a somewhat stock car?
I mean, it depends on the class, right?
Sure.
Some cars, you're not going to be able to get any kind of much out of them, but obviously negative camber in the front.
Yep.
Get the front grip up, get the thing to turn. Try not to beat up the shoulders of the front tire so much. If it's a Honda Fit, you're going to be limited, on what you can do there. But every little bit matters. Sometimes people think it doesn't matter at all if they can't get 3 degrees, so they don't bother.
Right.
But everything you can get, out of the front on camber matters.
Very cool. Very cool. There is your tech tip for this week, brought to you by Babyface Fabrication. Awesome. We appreciate that. All right, back to course design. What makes a great autocross course to you?
To me,
Yeah.
I will risk reward. I want to come back thinking I want to have the shakes. Like if you ever put your hand out and have like the adrenaline shakes. I always try and put one thing, at least in one of those courses, that maybe you have to kind of slither the car through. Super narrow gates that you're just going to go bowling over cones. No, things are so wide that you could do anything and miss by a mile and get through it. No. So I think it needs to be challenging, speed change, so you're actually driving the car, not just,
Right.
kind of modulating within 10 miles an hour or something, and some thrill. The whole reason I think we do this is we want to feel the G-forces. We want to feel the car moving around. And, I guess that, and making sure that you can find your way around. If you can't see where you're going, driving off memory sucks. You're not supposed to do it. It's in the rule book that you shouldn't have to do it. So that's why visuals are kind of a big thing, with me trying to make it very obvious that, you're in this section of the course, moving to that section.
Is that new? Because I remember back when I last did this in my first life, which ended in my life didn't end. My autocrossing career ended in around 92. I remember the courses you had to memorize stuff. I mean, like really, really, and completing a course for me back then was a victory without missing a gate. Today, when I went back to started doing this 3 years ago, I guess, the first thing I noticed was, wow, there's a pointer cone. That was never a thing back in the 92, or if it was, it didn't happen very often. Was that to make it more new person friendly, or is that just good for everybody?
I think it's good for everybody as long as they're used properly. Now we've gone a kind of the other way, where you'll get every gate has a pointer cone on it,
Yeah.
and I mean 37 single cones. Especially when there's multiple ones like pointing the same way, and then all of a sudden you get like one random one going the other direction. That doesn't help you either.
Right.
Occasionally I'll do a course and just have a regular old gate, like particularly when you're going straight.
Yeah.
I just put a regular gate up, and it's funny to watch people's brains short circuit. They don't know what to do with it. Like you drive straight through it, like pretend they're two trees, just
Yeah.
go that way. You're
Yeah.
headed that way. So yeah, I think it's an evolution of, trying to guide people around and have fewer DNFs and things like that.
Yeah. I remember the third pointer cone on a slalom. I'm like, what's the point? If you figured out which way to go around the first one, you don't need 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But they were there. Yeah. So I
agree.
I get that.
Yeah.
Obviously, do you design a different course for a local autocross than what you do at maybe a national tour or a solo nationals?
I do the same. It's the same cars. Some cars run on index. like it or not, that's the way it is. Even if you don't have a competitive PAX or index class, most of us still use it, most of us who are not egotistical enough to go, well, I won my class and I was the only car here and all that other stuff. Anywhere I go, I want to look at the end of the day where all the rest of the fast guys are who aren't, in F Street or whatever I'm driving at the time. And, I want to see how I did against them. So I'm always looking at index. So courses should be balanced. It's hard to, I can't say I set out to do that. I just managed to do it. I think because of the speed change and the fact that I like a lot of variety, I ended up with courses that have a lot of different mix of elements, in them. And it just kind of works out that usually it's, pretty balanced on index at the end.
When did the index start?
No idea. Before me, it was McCamey. They had some series going on. I think they Autocross in the Streets, like out in Gary, Indiana, or something like that. Don't know when it started. I don't think it was long before I started, but maybe late 80s or something like that.
Yeah, because maybe it wasn't adopted across the autocross world very quickly. Because I don't remember that in the upper Midwest when I was doing it. When I started again last year, the whole idea of PAX and index was foreign to me. Now that I've had a chance to spend a little time looking at it, I think it's actually one of the most intriguing wrinkles to autocross, for the exact thing you said, is that you may be the best in your class in your region, and that's not necessarily always fun, just to always be the guy up front. I mean, it can be, it's good for your ego, but if you really want to measure yourself against the best in your area, or when you get to nationals, the best in the country, the PAX and the index is really the way to do it.
It's not perfect. That's people get all hung up on it. They're like, well, I lost. It's because the index sucks for my car this year. Yeah, I mean, it happens. Yep. It's relatively close. Rick Ruth does it now, and I've mentioned him a couple times. I don't know if it's stuck. It used to be they would take the results from all the big hot regions like San Francisco region and other regions in the country, and use those results to come up with these indexes. But they're still using some of those regions, and they're not. A lot of them are dead
right
now. Sites change, tires change. And I'm like, can we just please use national events as the the basis for figuring this stuff out? I think it would probably tighten things up, a fair bit.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you've got a lot of outliers, which you would get if you have a bigger sample of maybe not the same quality of drivers and cars, that can throw off any kind of system that's based on a formula or an algorithm. So that makes good sense. Let's talk a minute about Club Spec Mustang.
Okay.
When that became an idea, you how did you get involved?
They were looking to do another spec class. SSC had been a thing for a number of years, and they were floating ideas like what car, and I didn't directly become involved because they didn't come to me and say, pick a car, we're doing it.
Right.
They had a poll or something, and I kicked out a couple ideas, but I said, if it were me, I would do this one because, it makes good sounds. There's parts everywhere for them.
Right.
You can find them all over the place. And, the probably most successful stretch of time I've ever spent doing this sport was from 07 to 11 in an S197 car, a Shelby GT most of the time, and then later a 5-liter. And I can't think of a time I had more fun. Might have been because I don't know, was really tied in with that car.
Right.
And I think I lost 3 national events total over those 4 years.
Wow.
But it was fun. It was a riot. The guy who owned it loved it. The first year we showed up with it, I PAX first at nationals again. I'll readily admit that index was based off the older F stock cars from the year before. Whatever, I didn't care. That's the way the game got played. And I remember my car owner, who's my best friend or one of my best friends, right before I went to leave grid in 07, he looks at me and he kind of looks around because I think I was winning by like 2 seconds or something. And he goes, please don't get us bumped to B stock. And I looked back at him and I'm like, am I still top PAX? And he looked and he went, yeah. And I'm like, sorry. And I left. And that was my whole goal, was just the top index. I didn't care what happened from there.
Right.
So that I
If you
did, luckily.
if you don't blame the rules when the rules are in your favor, in my opinion, you can't blame the rules when the rules aren't in your favor.
Right.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
So anyway, it's a reliable car, and it's just you can do a lot of fun things with it. You know, the fact that the big brakes from the other, like the Shelby GT 500s and stuff, bolt right on. I knew, because the idea was to cross over to time trial as well, and I think because I've background in both those things, that probably helped. And people remember, it wasn't that long ago. A lot of people remember when we were running those cars. We always laugh. We had a pizza party one year in Grid at Nationals. I don't know, something about something about V8s and rear wheel drive, and we just do stupid stuff like that sometimes.
No, that's awesome. So when they decided to go with the Mustang, and were you the single source for the Mustang parts, or were there other suppliers?
I was supposed to have been for the dampers.
Right. Okay.
I never wanted to be single source for
Sure.
anything else. I thought that was, I mean, I kind of roughed out the whole first rule set. I mean, there were things that got changed that,
Sure.
weren't my call or anything like that, but I didn't want that. Even though I'm in business, I try not to be a greedy person,
Right.
and things like that, but you can pick up anything. If you want to build one tomorrow, I've got everything you need to do it, but you can buy everything you need elsewhere if you want.
Got it.
The dampers need to be sealed. They do that with SSC and tire rack. And that was exactly what was supposed to happen here. I still seal them. You still have to have them sealed, but apparently somehow, some way other people can do it, but I don't even know how they're doing it.
Right.
I just don't worry about it, because there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Because I know none of those other people have won, multiple championships in the car, and
Sure.
they know what they're doing with it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you have fun putting that whole thing together? I mean, I know you've gotten some flack on some things, and you can't always make everybody happy. But it's an interesting process, isn't it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it because I knew what we had to start with the chassis,
Right.
and I knew how good the Shelby was, like an F-stock trim. I later ran ESP with my 5-liter as well, and it really wasn't that hard because I kind of knew where the weakest parts were.
Right.
In retrospect, the one thing I don't know that I regret not having pushed for the true track differential from the start, but it was a more expensive piece, and I think if you had required it, and there are still cars out there running with the factory track aux and going fast,
Right.
like Kevin Buchholz and Chip Manuel. Requiring the true track would have meant that diff was now not legal anymore.
Right.
So I said, hey, I like this diff, but it only works like a stock diff. It just does it for longer. So can we make them both legal? And there's a few things about it. Like, yeah, it's a spec class, and it's mostly spec, but it's not exactly spec. Like, there's a bunch of air intakes you can run.
Sure.
Why? I thought it was stupid to try and force people, if they had a functioning air intake that they bought on a car, to force them to go buy another $300 air intake.
Right. Right.
Stuff like that. So
We're what, 3 years into it now?
yeah.
2 years? 2 years?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Would you call it a success?
I think so. Last I looked, I think Nationals had 33
Yeah.
cars open, I think, and some ladies as well.
Nice.
Considering it's a supplemental class, and it's not the new shiny thing, like I don't know, a Supra or
Right.
something, that just rolls into a dealer for the first time and car people gravitate toward. Everybody I know has a blast with it. Like you said, you can't, what's the joke? You can please all of the people some of the time, or
Right.
some of the people all of the time. A couple of the complaints are totally unfounded. Some of them are well-founded. Like the one guy was hill climbing his car and kept tearing up diffs because he would pick the inside rear tire up and slap it back down on the ground. And yeah, the stock diff didn't really like that very much. I didn't know that because I didn't hill climb the car. We tracked them and stuff. And True Track took care of that. The Goodyear was kind of a team decision. It was a tire I was familiar with from having owned a bunch of sets and had Camaro 1LEs that came on them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's super durable. It's fun to drive. It doesn't get all greasy when it gets hot. If there's one thing I could change right now, simply with two things. I'll say two things. Um, I wish we could just get an allowance to put a seat in the car. Every other SCCA class, like
Yeah.
street touring, stuff like that, they can put a seat in the car. Uh, I wish we could do that without the level 2 safety stuff,
Got it.
but it's CSM's the only thing that gets affected by that. And the stock seats, suck.
Right.
Frankly, a race seat is a whole lot nicer thing. Um, uh, and I forgot what the second one was, so it must not have been that important.
The stock seats on most cars suck. Um,
These are Barca Loungers. They're worse.
yeah, yeah. I was fortunate enough, right when the whole thing came out, to drive the car that Goodyear built
Mm-hmm.
right off the bat, and didn't get a lot of time in it, but enough to realize that this was a ton of fun, and it was both aggressive and forgiving, if that makes any sense. I could get it to do what I wanted it to do, and then I could catch it before it did something stupid, and which I think for a spec class is a pretty smart thing to have happen, because I think you get a lot of kind of newer people that sometimes go into spec classes, and if they have a car that's so difficult to drive, they're not going to want to come back and do it again. So I think the package early on, I haven't driven it since any of the changes have been made over the last 2 years, but it was a lot of fun to drive. So I absolutely see the allure of it, and it's American muscle, which I think is an important contrast to whatever the other car turned out to be. Whether it was, I know they were talking about a Porsche Boxster for a while, and ended up with the Mazda for obvious reasons. The Mazda is a huge supporter of the club, and I think that makes perfect sense to put the spec MX whatever club spec Mazda in there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, the Goodyear car when you drove it was very mild. Like it's not even close to full prepped
right.
then. And really, the only thing that's changed from then to now is the differential, which doesn't,
Right.
again, make the car faster. It just makes it more consistent. And yeah, and back to the success part of it, I think it's shown up pretty well. I mean, I was looking at results from the last tour or shootout, I guess, in Peru, Indiana, and it was, I think there were 10 CSM cars, and unfortunately, there was only one CSX car. Right?
Huh.
I think we've reached Miata's saturation point.
Maybe.
Sadly,
Yeah.
As good as Mazda is, that's the thing. They've always been good. You can run STS, you can run E Street or C Street, STR or DST or AST or whatever the hell it is now. It seems like if you want to drive a Miata, you got a million places to do it.
Right.
So, and the NC was never that popular, anyway. So
Yeah.
the CSX cars are a lot of fun. I've driven them. So I guess looking at it in that light, I'm really glad. And yes, we never had a class that had high powered rear wheel drive, made good rumbly noises,
Right.
and stuff like that.
Right. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. You're heading to nationals this year.
Mm-hmm.
Lincoln's an interesting place. I went there 2 years ago, and again, I don't have any other solo nationals to compare to, but forgetting about the competition for a second, it is the most fun that I have every year in all this stuff. And I do all the super tours and travel to a bunch of them. I've been racing since 1986 with my dad, and other than a year or two in that span where I maybe only went out once or twice, I've been involved every year since then. And I don't have more fun anywhere on any racing than when I go to solo nationals.
It's a party.
Yeah.
It's changed from when we started. And we used to, people have their little blenders and things like that, but we used to show up with what looked like a soft serve machine, that made slushies, and we'd make margaritas and we'd just hang out all night, in the paddock and stuff like that. That's changed. I'm not sure, if it's the internet and people can, talk, get on Facebook or whatever and say, hey, a bunch of us are going to dinner. So they take off.
Right.
It's just different, but yeah, it's a big social thing. I mean, last year I ran Tuesday, Wednesday, and I stayed till the end because I have customers and friends, and and it's I don't know, it's kind of feels like home in a way, and it's sad. I mean, this year I run 50 last day. It's like a ghost town. I mean, I swear tumbleweeds go blowing through the place, and it's a little depressing when you look around and everybody's gone.
Yeah.
but I mean, that's part of life, right?
Sure.
That's what happens. You take the good with the bad. But I'm going to have a hell of a good time, from between the end of the pro solo, up until sometime on Thursday, when
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to run. And I mean, I'll have a good time the whole time, but
Sure.
I don't be hyper focused, and I'll use that to go mess around, screw around, visit people I don't see normally,
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't have the reference of the really wild times at Solo Nationals because it has been somewhat less. But what I found was interesting, in addition to the parties, is just everyone's so friendly and wanting to be helpful. And when I was the new guy, it was just a really cool, the competitive camaraderie was something you get. You get it on the road racing side, but not quite to that level.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty
Yep, that's an
interesting.
important part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. What's you've been doing this now for a long time. You still do it. What keeps you coming back?
The autocross, just
Yeah,
the
just to,
driving the car part. I like driving cars fast, and it's the most accessible way to do it with the least amount of risk. I mean, I've spent plenty of time on a racetrack. I've had bad things happen to me on a racetrack. That's not the racetrack's fault. I still do it. I'll be at time trial nationals, this year again. And but here's the thing. Today, I mean, we had this meeting, right? But last night I looked at the schedule. I don't know why, because I knew we were doing this, but I looked at the schedule and I'm like, there's two events within 2 hours of me. If I wanted to just jump in the car this morning and go, I could have been there, done the runs, and come home,
yeah.
and done something that was got my heart rate up for the day.
Yeah. I go to Solo Nationals and I see 1,300 people there. When I go to my Cal Club events, there's usually 70, 80 cars. Is the whole of the country strong with autocross right now, or are the numbers a lot lower than what you saw back in the day?
I don't know, they're a lot lower. I think they're fragmented. There's so much overlap. Like here, at least where I am, it was last weekend. I was looking at events, right? Within 4 hours of me, I think there were 7 different events, and most of them had no numbers because some of them are smaller sites, or whatever reason. There's always like the 600-pound gorilla somewhere,
Right.
and that was NEPA, I think, at a bigger site over in Wilkes-Barre. So yeah, I mean, there's almost too much choice sometimes in a way. And I'll be honest with you, I think we've kind of gotten there a little bit with national events. There's so many
Right.
that I can't make them all. I don't want to make them all, but there's other people that go to them. I'd like to race against as many people as I can in my class, as all the time. But we all have lives, we have places to be and things to do, and we just can't be everywhere at once.
Yeah.
So, accessibility is the best it's ever been, but there's only so many people that either know about the sport or want to do it, or or anything like that. So if you don't have a great site, like there was a time not that long ago in DC region, we had 300 people at a local event,
Wow.
and multiple times. But it was a huge site. It was the kind of the biggest, best thing that was on the East Coast, and unfortunately, it's gone now. It's there, but it's not really usable.
Right.
And people, that's what I mean. That's why, to me, like, course design is important, right? That's the thing. We want to drive the car, and you want to drive the car on a good course, and you kind of need everything to click like any other relationship.
Right.
So, but I think national shows how popular it is overall. I think we're capped out at 14. Isn't it 1,400? I think
I thought it was 13, but it could be
it
14.
might be.
Yeah.
It might be.
I think it's 13, and then they let some stragglers through if they have a wait list. So, which is kind of interesting. Is finding sites the biggest scare for the autocross community right now?
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of land. It's not cheap to pave anything. There's always somebody joking about, oh, if I hit the lottery, I'm going to go buy a big piece of land and pave it. Love to see it at some point. There are some autocrossers that are, well off, and I'm, occasionally I'll chide them a little bit. I'm like, well, when are you going to do it? When are you going to build the site?
Yeah.
But they know it's not a moneymaker, and sites, it's a litigious society. Why? It's a blessing to even let us on sites sometimes.
Yeah.
And, then when you have things like sound, but which, by the way, like with the club spec Mustang, we wrote in that you have to have mufflers and they have to be a certain size, which, of course, immediately drew a couple complaints from people. But neighbors aren't happy.
Yeah.
If you're waking them up at 7:30 in the morning, and if they don't get anywhere yelling at us, they're going to go right back to the person who owns the site. And generally that person is going to go, yeah, this isn't worth dealing with.
Right. Right.
So yeah, sites are the thing.
Yeah. Being a good neighbor is something that we really have to think about, because people who give us sites don't sell us sites, rent us sites. If it becomes a pain to them, they're probably not making that much of their total income from renting out a piece of pavement to us for a couple of weekends. So it turns out to not be worth their time. But last question as we get done here. Actually, two things. First of all, one of the things I always wondered, and it became very evident to me with some of the other organizations who put on auto events, that SCCA has multiple programs, and they are often distant from each other. And you look at it, and I don't care about dropping names. You look at a program like Grid Life, which has 4 or 5 completely different events, all smashed into the same weekend at the same location, and they have more of a solo nationals feel to them. And road racing does their thing, autocross does their thing, road rally does their thing, and never shall the 3 or 4 or 5 meet, because somehow that would be some sort of cardinal sin of the SCCA. And I always felt, if you're already renting a track and they have an autocross pad on it, why are we not inviting our autocross brethren to come and play with us and get everybody together in the same weekend? And maybe an autocrosser finds out that they might want to try road racing, or a road racer goes, hey, you know what? My kid's here this weekend. Maybe they could go autocrossing. I don't understand why we're always so separate, but not even equal.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a dysfunctional family at times.
Yeah.
I think logistically that would be hard. Like what you just mentioned. Most tracks don't have an autocross pad, or if they do, it's really small. Or if they have a big, event, a road race event or something like that, they may be using that for paddock area. Yeah. I know at Pit Race they've done that. This end of the summer thing, they have. I think they might have had a super tour come in, and then they have a 2-day regional autocross. And it kind of becomes a party. It just always ends up falling on a weekend of this other autocross thing that is not an SCCA thing that is, let's just say, valuable. So I never make that one. I would like to do both. It'd be awesome to autocross and time trial on the same weekend.
Yeah.
But trying to go back and forth and figuring out where you need to be, and luckily I can do it. My car changes over very easily. And I can autocross on my race pads, but a lot of cars kind of not so much can do that. I don't know if it's a good way to do it, but Grid Life doesn't autocross, right? I kind of liked the time trial thing, but we were doing the track sprints, because that felt like exactly that. It was merging, an aspect of autocross of standing start, get it done, and get gone. And of course, the pure track guys never liked it,
sure, because
they think it's got no value or something like that. But I disagree. I think it's the other way around. I think it adds a whole other element to things. So
lastly, do you see enough youth coming in? Do you see the new people getting into the sport coming in at a rate that is enough to keep the sport alive?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think, again, if you look at solo nationals numbers, they're not bad. I mean, people have come and gone, and the people who retire or pass away or whatever, obviously somebody is taking their place, right? Member retention's always been a thing with the club, in general. So I don't think that's ever changed. Like I said, I think our big danger is it's just the site problems. I
Right.
think more than anything. And the better the sites are, the more people will come and do it more. If they have to run on a tiny little postage stamp and they can't get out of first gear and everything like that, I could see they might just kind of come and do it and go, yeah, I don't know, but, doesn't really feel like you're going that fast. And, to other people who might be used to going 160 at Daytona, maybe top of second gear doesn't feel that fast, but,
Sure.
Things are happening twice as often at 60 miles an hour as they are at 30.
Right.
So yeah, I think it just goes back to the
Cool.
site thing.
Cool. Sam, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun having you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I've wanted to have you on for a while here, and it's a really insightful conversation. So this is where I give you the opportunity to thank any folks you might want to thank who help you do what you do, and the floor is yours.
I hadn't thought of any particular person. I wish I could say I could thank a lot of people, but one of the things I pride myself in, I guess, is I don't really actually have any sponsorship. I don't want it.
Oh.
I've had tire contracts and stuff like that. So nope, I basically pay my own way. I do it so I can learn the things I like, the things I don't like, and not have to feel guilty about telling customers that. So aside from just the people that support me when I'm not around, like Desiree Dobson is my assistant at work, and Raymond Hall, that works for me. If it wasn't for those two, I couldn't get to nearly as many places as I do. So shout out to them. Those are probably the two most influential people in that way.
Nice. All right, Sam, thanks a lot. I hope to see you at Solo Nationals, and if it looks like I'm going, so I will definitely find you and put a handshake out there for you.
All right, man. I'll be there the entire time.
Yeah, well, I will too, because I'm covering it for the show. And it looks like if I go with this car I'm driving is Thursday, Friday, so that makes it easy to stay the whole week. But even when
I think DC. I think we're road 25. So
okay,
find the Blue Mustang in road 25, and there I'll be.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the SCCA. If you like what you saw, like, subscribe, leave a comment, any kind of comments you want, whether it's about Solo Nationals, whether you want to see us do a particular tech tip, that would be awesome. Check us out on the YouTube, of course. It's the Racing Network. You can also check us out on our podcast on all of the main podcast channels. That's going to do it for this episode. I'm Brian Bielanski. Have yourself a great week. Stay safe and go play with cars.